Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Roy Harriman. I am with Ministry Pacific Insurance Services, and we're delighted to have you today as we talk about the case for international travel and medical insurance. Our guest today is Mark Rogers of IMG, also known as International Medical Group, and he has more than 2 decades of experience in this industry, all of it with IMG, and he oversees the missionary division. And Mark tells me that his job is an expression of his personal faith and enables him to serve the community. So, Mark, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate being here.
Mark, one of the things that I found when I began doing research for this webinar was that Forbes magazine declared that 2023 could be the unofficial year of international travel insurance. And it pointed out that the last few years have revealed the volatility of the travel industry, regardless of what you're traveling for, whether you're traveling for business or pleasure or missions. Mark, what are some of the factors that are elevating the importance of travel and medical insurance today, particularly as we're talking about international?
So let me answer that question this way, Roy. I started with IMG now. I just celebrated 22 years of working for the company. And I was 6 months into my tenure working for IMG. And on 9/11, our country was attacked. And I recall thinking naively at the time that, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? I'm in an industry now that's not going to grow. Nobody's going to want to travel internationally. The market's going to be a lot smaller than I hoped it would be or was led to believe it would be. As I can say, I was completely wrong. The number of people didn't really diminish. It may have gone down a little bit there for a short while after the attack, but it started to grow again and has only been growing continuously year after year. And what was different after 9/11 was that there was actually a heightened interest by the consumers in the marketplace about having protection should they ever find themselves at risk of a terrorist attack while they were traveling abroad. So they started looking for insurance and asking a lot of questions. If I travel abroad with your coverage, would I be covered if something, heaven forbid, would happen unexpectedly? And of course, we were able to tell them, yes, it would. But the point being is that it heightened the awareness for having this type of coverage. And since then, of course, there have been numerous incidents around the globe, around the world that have basically served the same purpose, which is to make people aware of the need for having some type of insurance that's going to be there if they ever need it for the unexpected. So there's natural disasters that people become aware of. There's SARS outbreaks throughout the years, the Ebola pandemic, and of course, probably the most recent episode that everybody is fully aware of is COVID and how that basically shut everything down. And if you were traveling overseas and needed to be quarantined, or maybe your trip was going to be canceled, what have you, a lot of people started knowing that they needed to travel, but wanted to make sure that they had coverage if any of these unexpected events happened. No one wants to think that they're going to get sick or injured while they're on a mission trip. But if it does, it can hijack what's supposed to be a very rewarding and exciting travel overseas. Fact is, people get sick, they do have accidents, and if they don't have adequate insurance designed to address a unique set of circumstances, whether it's medical care or something else, a rewarding trip can turn into something that can be very forgettable. So there are those reasons that people look to when they're looking at the international insurance division or market. And it isn't just medical insurance that people are looking for. There are other things that can cause hardship or financial inconvenience. People can lose their non-refundable travel expenses if a trip is canceled unexpectedly. If your trip is interrupted while you're overseas, and you have unexpected expenses for that, you need to come home earlier than you thought, or your travel is delayed. It's good if you can find insurance for that. And that has become something that many people are aware of and are looking for. There's something else to think about that is not always thought of by an organization, and that is what we refer to as duty of care. And duty of care, simply put, says that an organization has a legal obligation to safeguard others from harm while they're in your care or traveling as a part of your organization. So, for example, a church group that's organizing a trip overseas Should something happen to one of those members, and as the sponsor of that trip, if they haven't seen to it that everyone has adequate medical coverage, they could very well be exposing themselves to potential liability. So heightened awareness by individuals says that there are more and more people traveling that are looking for coverage that covers the risks that they may be exposed to, and organizations need to be thinking of duty of care. And all these reasons combined are the reasons why insurance, whether it's trip insurance or travel medical insurance, are very relevant in today's market.
If you're traveling simply for yourself, that doesn't appear to be an issue. But as a lot of churches are oriented toward taking teams, whether for a pilgrimage, whether for a volunteer service, medical ministry, really whatever it is, if they have not been proactive in essentially showing leadership in terms of the potential medical or evacuation travel needs of the group members, it could potentially expose them to litigation. Is that what I'm understanding you saying?
You are hearing that correctly. There's always been the moral obligation, if you will, that if I'm going to be sponsoring a trip overseas, it's morally imperative that I make sure that everybody has coverage. But it's becoming more and more as we, it's a litigious society that we live in, and church folk are not adverse to suing somebody just because there are people of faith. It can happen. So to protect yourself, either it's in your best interest as an organization, whether you're a church or a mission sending organization, ensure that those folks have purchased the insurance on their own or that you provide it for them, just so you can remove that any potential liabilities should something happen.
It's hard to imagine a case where someone would, be willfully negligent. I am sure that just simple ignorance comes into play when people don't have insurance from time to time, was particularly if they're leading a ministry-oriented group. Simply that there are so many factors that go into planning a trip, raising funds, getting visas, getting passports, all these other things. And again, you're talking about possibly volunteer construction teams, teaching teams, a large group of people going to a conference, even something as innocuous in that. What are some of the really kind of like street level practical needs that might arise with people when they're traveling? As you say, we don't like to talk about that. We're just like happy to get away from wherever we're at. What are some of the practical needs that can come up that international travel and medical insurance can address?
Even in today's market, there is a common assumption that folks have that when they travel abroad, that their domestic insurance is going to follow them wherever they go. And the fact is that most domestic insurance plans that provide coverage in the US, they're not going to protect you when you're traveling overseas. There are some rare instances that they do, but that's most likely going to be limited coverage around medical emergencies only. So even if your domestic plan would provide coverage for medical costs, some limited care, and again, that's very rare, a domestic plan is most assuredly not going to provide you any coverage should you need to be evacuated because you're needing medical care, you're in a life-threatening situation, and where you're at, the hospital or the medical clinic that you've gone to, is not able to readily treat what you need. They're either incapable or they just don't have the care and it's not sophisticated. And so you need to be transported somewhere else. Domestic insurance plans are not going to provide that type of coverage. So when you've got an international policy, you've got a 911 call. You've got a company that's going to be available 24/7, any time of the day, any time of the week, and they're going to be available to get their medical team involved and to get you transported, working with the hospital where you're at, finding a hospital that they can transport you to, making all the arrangements on your behalf. And then when you're stabilized, getting you back home or back to where you were evacuated from. It's up to you, but most people want to come back home. The insurance company provides the entire process. They navigate it all for you. Like I said, many people believe falsely that their domestic insurance will be there, but if they don't, and if you travel without it, and you now find yourself in a situation that you're looking at that you don't have the insurance, your options are bleak. You're going to have to remain where you're at and hope for the best. You can maybe arrange for a medical evacuation on your own, but good luck with that. Most hospitals won't take you if they don't know that you have medical insurance already in place that will follow you when you're transported. And the cost of a medical evacuation can run thousands of dollars, if $50,000 or more. So these are not things you want to be facing on your own. These are things that you want somebody else to take care of you so that when you're in the midst of an emergency, they're going to be there for you. And more people are realizing that that's the way to go.
Mark, let me ask you, what about Medicare?
Good question. Medicare stops at the border. So unless you have a Medicare supplement that does provide, international coverage, then you'd be on your own.
Okay. Okay.
It's a good reason why the U.S. State Department actually puts a warning on the State Department website that says if you're going to travel overseas, we highly recommend that you have a travel medical insurance plan. And in fact, there are many countries that won't even let you get a visa into their country if you don't show proof of having some type of medical insurance, because they themselves know that your domestic plan is probably not going to treat you or cover you while you're overseas.
An important, I think, side note to what you're saying, Mark, is that the type of travel that they're engaged in is quite adventurous. They're maybe going to meet some real significant needs around the globe. They may be headed to Haiti. They may be headed to Zimbabwe. I know people have traveled in both. I've personally been to Haiti, was in Ukraine pre-war, and some of the situations that that you can put yourself in by being a risk taker and being adventurous, which often is the right thing to do. But if you're left to your own resources, it can be quite staggering. Situations where if there is a hospital, it's basically a slab and you're supposed to bring your own medicine, and so having these connections is critical. If it's okay with you, I think this would be a great opportunity to show the video about the individual who was skiing in Argentina.
Yeah, Mark Kogelman. I think this is a great time to show that, Roy.
Yeah, and this is not a mission trip, but all of the things that Mark has mentioned are related to by this short video. It's only about 3 minutes, and it's really like a case study.
Hi, my name is Mark Kogelman. In August 2014, I planned a trip to South America with my friends. So the very first day we went skiing, I was riding up the chairlift with my friends. We were having a great time. We were skiing a groomer on the way down, and unfortunately there was an unexposed rock right there. So I skied over this rock. It stopped me dead in my tracks. I did a somersault, and I cracked my skull open, forehead to crown. At the same time, I fractured my cervical 1 spine in 4 separate places, so essentially I broke my neck and ultimately damaged an artery to my brain. Not only was I scared that, my life was in danger, but also the ramifications of the money that it would cost to have a surgery down there and get life flighted out, what the impact would be on my family and myself. I spent 12 days in the hospital there. What normally would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars cost me a $500 deductible and I think $130 out of pocket.
Normally when you call a company like an insurance company or a credit card company or anything like that, you kind of expect there to be a long wait time, to be on hold, and I was already really stressed out about everything that I was having to take care of. So I was like, oh, this is just going to be awful. And they picked up right away, and I spoke with Rob. I just remember pretty much immediately he said, yeah, this is going to be covered, don't worry about it. And that just took so much stress out of me. He coordinated the trip from both ends, he coordinated the healthcare from both ends. Everything was taken care of. So all I have to take care of was just getting myself down to Santiago to take care of Mark. I mean, it just took this whole burden off of me.
I took comfort in the fact that IMG had my back. They really orchestrated everything. They took care of all the arrangements I had, from the airlift to Santiago to paying my bills in the hospital. If you're thinking about travel insurance at all, definitely get it. It saved my life, and it could save yours. I'm back now, fully healthy, skiing, hanging out with my family. Without IMG, I wouldn't have been here.
Well, you just talked me out of going skiing in Argentina. I was planning on it for sure.
Just make sure you bring an insurance policy with you.
Absolutely. Actually, I'll just skip the skiing and just go to Argentina, but I still need the insurance. So that was very helpful, very self-explanatory. Any following comments about that would be relevant to our audience here today?
Yeah, I just think the short story there pretty much epitomizes what insurance is all about. It's designed to give you peace of mind that should something unexpected, something emergent happen, that you've got somebody that can be there for you when you're facing questions and going through tremendous amount of stress, not only for the insured person, but for, in this instance, his wife as well, that you're in good hands. Everything is being arranged for it. We take care of it from A to Z. We just make you aware of what's going on. We work with the doctors. We talk to them on your behalf and communicate anything to you that you need in the interim, so that you've got questions. And then when it's all said and done, we get you back home safe and sound. So that's what insurance is supposed to be about. And anybody that travels without it is really putting themselves in a potentially harmful situation. We've got a large organization that sponsors youth trips all over the globe. They typically send out groups of youth for 10 months at a time, and they travel from country to country to country. It's a lot of fun for the kids, young people. You get a chance to spread the gospel, but see a lot of different environments and cultures throughout the world. And in this particular instance that I learned about a couple of weeks ago, it was a young woman, and her group happened to be in Africa, and she started complaining about severe stomach pain. And she went to the local clinic. She was put in the hospital for 3 days with an acute appendicitis. They gave her antibiotics after the 3 days, and they released her. And they told her that if she should have another attack, she should go to the emergency room immediately. Well, because the group was going to be traveling on, and her mother became aware of it, obviously. And so this didn't make a whole lot of sense to her. And she became overly concerned, and not overly concerned, rightfully concerned. And so she reached out to IMG, and our registered nurse from one of on our medical team, along with our medical director, they looked into the situation, and they immediately came to a different conclusion. And they determined that this young woman was in danger of having her appendix burst, and she really needed to have an emergency appendectomy ASAP. So they took it, they worked with the provider where she had been getting her treatment, got all the medical records, and made arrangements to evacuate her to, I believe it was Nairobi, where she had the surgery and averted what could have been a very tragic ending. In addition, one of the benefits in our policy, and it's probably common in most policies, is that we have an emergency reunion benefit. So the fact that her daughter was being evacuated to another city, another country, another city within that country, but her mother was back in Oklahoma, and we paid to fly her to Nairobi so she could be with her daughter and be there when she came out of surgery and could attend to her, and all that was taken care of under her policies. So again, peace of mind, not only for the insured, but also for the loved ones that are worried about them when they're sitting back home.
One of the reasons that Mark is joining us today is not only is an expert, but Ministry Pacific is a broker for travel insurance, IMG specifically. And so you can contact us through ministrypacific.com, and we're happy to help you get connected with insurance for your travel and missions needs. So it's one thing to be able to know that you have coverage, but another issue is, particularly when you're in an international environment, and perhaps it's not an emergency, perhaps it's significant enough for you to address it, but yet it may not be an emergency, is access to the network of providers. So I'm in Athens, and I know I have coverage, and I know I'm ill, I have no idea where I'm supposed to go or who I'm supposed to talk to, or can I walk into any hospital? How does that component of it work?
That's a very good question. So, unlike in the United States, where U.S. citizens were accustomed to having perhaps a PPO, a preferred provider organization, a network of doctors or hospitals that we can go to, and when we stay in network, there is cost savings. That's not the way it works overseas. So you are free as an insured to get your care anywhere you want. No matter where you go when you're traveling outside of your home country, your coverage is going to follow you. There are some folks, I would probably venture to guess most people don't do this, but there are some people that will do a little bit of due diligence when they know they're going to be somewhere, particularly if they're going to be there for a long time. And they make themselves aware of the surroundings. They look for providers. We can help you identify a provider in the area that you're going, and I'll speak to that in a second. But for those that don't, that are just, you know, the unexpected has happened. I'm only going to be there for a week or so. I didn't really need time to think about, finding out where the hospital would be or where I should go. Rule of thumb, just like you would here in the States, you get sick, you get in an accident, you go to the nearest medical facility, you go to the hospital, you go to the medical clinic, you go to a doctor's office. If it's emergent, that's when you're going to want to get us involved if need be. If they're not able to treat you, then again, we're available 24/7. Bring us in, we talk to the medical provider, and then we make arrangements. And just whether we choose to move you because they're not able to provide the care, or we just provide another set of eyes with the same quality of healthcare that we're used to getting here in the States. And just assuring the loved one or the members that are traveling with you that, hey, what you're being prescribed is perfectly fine. There's nothing out of bounds. We agree with the care that's being prescribed. Or if heaven forbid, they're not able to get what you need, now we got to take action and get you somewhere else. But the point is, you can go to any doctor you want, and we can start the process as you enter the healthcare system over there. If you want to do a little bit of due diligence ahead of time, you know where you're going, the U.S. embassies can certainly provide that type of information. As I mentioned a little bit before, we do have a database of providers that we could make available on our website. These are providers that we've worked with throughout the 30 plus years that we've been in business, that we're comfortable with. Some providers have agreed contractually to work with us and will allow us to bill us directly so that you don't have to pay out of your pocket if you're inpatient and you're facing some significant hospital bills that coming up with thousands and thousands of dollars is not going to be practical or feasible for you. We will always work with those providers. And there are many actually that have agreed to contract with us ahead of time. We make those providers, we note those providers in that database. And that database is something that you can search by city, by country, wherever you're going to be going, that allows you to just kind of get a little heads up ahead of time and know if I need care, I can go here. And I know that these providers speak English because the website that IMG sent me to shows all that information and what they specialize in, et cetera.
Case study, because we don't know all the specific details, and so we would want to talk to Wendy on an individual basis. But let's just throw this out here and examine what she's doing, which is very similar to what a lot of groups are doing. So headed to Guatemala. And is Guatemala a covered country is her question. The mission trip will be in May. What type of insurance should she get to help her get covered in a short time? So that would be another question. Is there enough time? And a little more information. It's a college mission trip, and they're going to be serving at a health center in Guatemala. So I know that's not a ton of details, but what would you advise someone, Wendy, and someone like Wendy, what do they need, and what do you recommend?
As a rule of thumb, Wendy, our short-term travel plans will cover you anytime you are traveling outside your country of residence. So as a U.S. citizen, if you're traveling outside of the United States or U.S. territories for that matter, Puerto Rico, Guam, this coverage will follow you wherever you go. So if you're going to go out, there are no countries that we cannot insure you in, with one caveat to that. We can't insure anybody for the time being in Ukraine or Russia. That is hands off for obvious reasons right now. There's just too much risk over there. But anywhere else in the world, as U.S. citizen or citizens, you're a group, you can buy what we refer to as a group outreach travel plan. That is the name of our plan. So it would follow you to Guatemala. Getting the coverage can be purchased as little as 1 day before you need the coverage. And you needed the coverage to be in effect as soon as tomorrow, because tomorrow's the date you're leaving. And by golly, we forgot to get the insurance. It's a last minute thing. Happens all the time. You go to the website, you click on the link, you get a quote, very user friendly. You say, this is the deductible we want for the group. This is the maximum benefit we want for the group. You click on that premium. That'll be the total premium for the entire group. You answer some basic questions like names, dates of birth, and what country you're traveling to, and put your credit card in. You get the coverage immediately, and everything is sent back to you in real time. So you've got everything you need to take with you as you travel abroad, and you can buy it as late as the day before you need it. And if you're traveling as a group, it doesn't sound like you've got some older people in your group, Wendy, but the nice thing about our group outreach cover is it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 79 years of age or 16 years of age, we charge the same daily rate for everybody in the group, which is a nice feature, particularly the groups that have older people.
And her follow-up question is, can people buy it as an individual instead of a group? I'm sure the answer is yes. Anything
Yes.
to add to that?
Yeah, the only difference when you buy it as an individual is that the premiums are age bracket, which means the older you are, the more you will pay for the coverage. So if you got a group of 5 or more, a group outreach plan would charge the same daily rate for everybody in the group.
Yeah, and great question. Guatemala is a great place to do ministry, and excited you've been there. My whole family and I went and served at an orphanage in 2015. Mark, people basically looking at 2 issues. One is the medical side, but then the other one would be travel. So looking at being stranded, cancellation, or maybe even you want to cancel. Are those things tied together, or do you purchase them separately, or how's that work?
Those are separate policies for the most part. So your least expensive option of the two, you've got your medical insurance plans, and then you've got your travel insurance plan. And the travel insurance plan is going to protect you from financial losses should your trip be delayed, interrupted, canceled. And the travel insurance plans also include medical expense coverage too. So medical insurance plan, just medical coverage with evacuation and repatriation, that kind of thing. But travel insurance, medical coverage, plus the protecting your travel investment. And because of the additional coverages, if you will, that go with a travel insurance plan, should your trip be canceled, et cetera, you're going to find those plans are going to be more expensive than just your straightforward medical plan. Those are sold separately. Typically, the travel insurance plans are sold on an individual basis. We do offer a group plan, but the benefits on our group plan are not as, shall we say, robust as if you buy it on an individual plan. For example, on an individual plan, many folks are looking for an optional benefit that allows you to cancel the coverage for any reason. You've changed your mind. I heard there was an outbreak of COVID in that particular area, and I'm just not comfortable going on that trip now. And I think I want to cancel that trip. And if I do, my travel provider, my travel vendor says, well, you can do that, but you're going to be out 50% of what you put down as a deposit. So if you've insured that would be what a travel insurance plan is for. And if you've bought a cancel for any reason feature, which is not automatically included, but is there available for purchase if you so choose, that's a nice feature to have. That would not be available on a group travel insurance plan, only if you buy it as an individual.
And this may be particularly, again, with this particular line of travel that you support, that is, faith-based groups and organizations. Again, if someone is going to a spot that maybe it's a geopolitical hotspot, they can get the flight, but they're monitoring the situation, or again, maybe if they're sending young people, students, they're going to be extra cautious, and the investment is going to be significant in this flight. It may be something to consider. It seems like it really pays to pay attention to the details and how much flexibility that you want. So there isn't really, there are very few policies where you can simply just not show up, give no notice, and get all your money back. There's some diligence that needs to be done, right, in terms of how flexible you need this cancellation policy to be.
I mentioned the cancel for any reason option. That's a popular option, but without that, you could cancel your trip because you lost your job or you've lost a loved one, somebody's gotten sick, things like that. Yeah, standard risks. But like I said, there's more and more people that say, I just something might come up because that particular part of the world has me a little concerned, but I'm still willing to put down the money today because I think I want to go. And if things don't get crazier between now and then, I'm still going to go. But if they start to elevate and I just want to back out of the trip at the last minute, then if you haven't bought that cancel for any reason option, then you wouldn't be able to just cancel because you don't feel like going.
And let me ask you about a related situation. So you've already gone the trip, you're in the location. Say you're in Haiti and there's some kind of unrest and you're concerned for your team and your safety. Is there a policy, essentially we want to get the heck out of here policy, which will help you to either update your flight or get another flight? Or is that something you have to work out on your own?
No, that is something that the policy would actually help you pay for. The only caveat to that would be that if you go into a country where there is a State Department travel warning, do not travel, level 4, and you go there anyway, then you're going to assume that inherent risk on your own.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose to go there, we understand why people would want to go, any number of different reasons. But if you're going to go to a place like that, and there's already been a travel warning in place before you purchase the coverage, then all bets are off and you would not have that coverage would not be included. But that would be the only instance where political insurrection or that type of activity would not be there for you if you should need it.
A couple other questions from Wendy here. She says, so where do you find out the travel warnings levels from the U.S.? Is it just the U.S. State Department website?
That is correct. Yep. You
Okay.
go into a particular country, it's easily found, and just put there's on the dashboard there, let's say travel warnings, and it'll list all the countries that have issued level 4 travel warnings for you to look at. And if one has been already is active and is in force when you buy the policy, then that's when that would negate that type of coverage. If it's enacted after you buy the policy, then that's a different story altogether. That would not be an excluded benefit.
Wendy, also asking about the COVID experience, but we can expand that to really any kind of essentially worldwide communicable disease. You mentioned SARS earlier on.
So COVID coverage is included automatically with our trip cancellation plans, i.e. travel insurance, as well as our medical plans. So start on the medical plans first. If you contract the disease, the virus, while you're overseas and you need to seek medical care while you're outside of the country as a result of COVID, that would be covered. Likewise, under the trip cancellation plans, the travel plans, COVID is a covered peril. So whether it's a reason to cancel your trip, whether it's reason for a trip delay, whether you need to be quarantined at doctor's orders and you incur additional expense, that's included as well. So that's been a hot button that obviously for the last couple of years now, everybody is most interested in. We've always been able to give folks the right answer.
Sure. And what if some kind of a mandated quarantine, again, obviously this isn't as relevant as it was, but a mandated quarantine causes you to not be able to take your flight home? How can you prepare for something like that?
You can't prepare for it. That's why the additional expense that you incur would be included in your trip cancellation policy.
Do you want to tell us just a little bit about this next video that we're going to watch?
So this is a couple, Mike and Sherry Nichols. Mike is a pastor. They reside in Fort Wayne, Indiana, so right up the road from us here in Indianapolis. I know Mike and Sherry. They sell our insurance products. And Mike and Sherry were taking a trip with family members. One of their children had just gotten married, and in the hustle and bustle of planning for the wedding and everything that's involved, they forgot to buy travel medical insurance. And wouldn't you know, Mike had a heart attack while he was while they were traveling.
Oh, wow.
And this just kind of summarizes in short. You'll hear from them talk about some of the hardships that they incurred as a result of not having insurance that was there for them.
I'm Sherry Nichols. My husband and I own a health insurance agency. Because of being in the health insurance business, we've traveled really pretty much all over the world and always have purchased an international medical group policy when we left. However, this one time our daughter was getting married, and in the hustle bustle of getting the wedding arrangements taken care of, I failed to purchase international medical group coverage for our cruise that was following after the wedding. Things were going wonderful until we went to Playa del Carmen in Mexico. At the end of the day, we came back to the ship and we were having dinner, and my husband started having chest pains. You could just tell that he was in a lot of pain and things were not good.
We had been out all day. We came back, went up on the ship, and I had a heart attack. And because the next day was going to be a day at sea, after an initial examination or whatever, they said we had to get off the ship. And it was midnight, and they gave us 15 minutes to get off the ship.
So you can just imagine in 15 minutes trying to think of all the things you needed to take or what limitations you might have. We had no idea. And the ambulance came and I got a sudden reality awakening of I don't speak Spanish and they don't speak English.
So they took us to this hospital in Playa del Carmen, and it was it had a cement floor. There were motorbikes parked inside. Some of it was dirt floor.
It just was beyond the ability to comprehend that this was all happening.
And then the next day I was pretty much out of it. Sherry was having to do it all, and with no help. A girl would drive up on a bicycle to do blood work, then she'd want paid. And the doctor wanted paid every day, and the hospital wanted paid every day. And so it was a very unsettling financial situation, as well as the desperate need to have someone who could help us with the language issues and the customs.
And we were on our own, no guidance, no direction, just seriously having to make our own decisions, pay our own way, trying to deal with a medical emergency, uncertainty, trying to communicate with our kids to let them know Dad was still alive and Mom was okay, half crazy, but she was okay.
It was quite an experience. It taught us well that you do not want to be out of the country without international medical group insurance.
If I hear people talking about going out of the country, we say to them, excuse me, do you have an international medical group policy or any international medical coverage? Because you should never leave without that.
As we are winding down our time here, Mark, this might be a good opportunity to relay any misunderstandings maybe that are common that you all find that you have to correct, or any like frequently asked questions maybe that we haven't already addressed. Would there be anything like that would be helpful for people who are watching?
I would make mention that on short-term travel medical plans, there's no medical underwriting. It's relatively inexpensive. A group of 5 or more can buy our group outreach plan for $2.50 per day per member. So it's not the end-all be-all major medical plan that we're accustomed to having, either provided by our employer or that we buy individually here through the exchange. But it is going to be there when you need it, but it's not designed to cover things that are ongoing, chronic healthcare conditions. Somebody's pregnant and they travel overseas, that they're not designed to cover a pregnancy because that's already something that it's ongoing. It's not there for preventive type care, so you can't get your routine immunizations or your wellness checkups. It's designed to cover you for the unexpected illness or injury that pops up, heaven forbid, while you're overseas and disrupts your trip, and then takes it a step further if it happens to be a medical emergency, but should not be looked at as something that, I expect it to cover everything that I'm currently being treated.
Yeah, it's essentially a rescue plan. In that last video, it was obvious that it wasn't just the health matter; it was just the stress of cross-cultural communication, finances. Who do I know to pay? How do I pay? All of those things. So very helpful.
Yeah. And I guess along those lines, Roy, I would add this, that when you are getting care overseas, medical providers may actually require payment up front before they'll treat you. They may require payment before you're released. And in instances where we're talking significant amounts of money, when we're brought into the situation and we're made aware of it, we can help you alleviate you from that type of stress. So we can set up the payment ahead of time and direct bill them. All we need to do is to be made aware of it. Now, you break your arm or something like that, you're going to have to pay for that out of your own pocket and then submit a claim to get reimbursed. But there are some times where those overseas providers will say, we're just not going to treat you, or we're not going to release you until you make payment for services rendered. And that's when companies like IMG are prepared to step in and help alleviate you from something like that.
Yeah, no, that's excellent that people are available in the time of crisis to tell you what to do and how to handle it. Well, we appreciate everyone who's joined us today, and we hope this information has been very helpful. You can get more information about international medical and travel from ministrypacific.com. Mark, if people have any particular follow-up for you or for IMG, what's the best way for them to go about that?
Yeah, I would say send me an email, Mark, M-A-R-K, Rogers, R-O-G-E-R-S, at imglobal.com. Or you can certainly call me direct at 800-628-4664, extension 14644.
Mark, thank you for sharing your expertise here today.
My pleasure, Roy. Thank you.
Please let us know at Ministry Pacific how we can be of service, whether it's international travel and medical or property and liability. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.